Welcome back. Amar here, host of GDM World Podcast, and today we're talking about something that's quietly became one of the most important layers in any modern GDM stack, the data layer. Specifically, how do you get the right data on the right person at the right time without stitching together 15 subscriptions and a team of engineers to make it work? My guest today has built a company squarely aimed at solving that problem. David is the founder of Databar.ai, a platform that's pulling enrichment data from over 1,000 providers, running it through intelligent waterfall logic, and making the whole thing accessible to sales and marketing teams with zero coding required. They have got over 1,000 users, 5 stars on G2, and they just launched the developer SDK and MCP integration for Claude. I generally think this is one of the more interesting things happening in agentic GTM workflows right now. David, welcome to the show. Really glad you're here.
Hi, Amar. I'm really glad to be here.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. So, David, how do you explain that about to a GTM leader in one sentence? Like, and what is the single problem you built it to solve?
Yeah, GTM leaders come in many shapes and sizes and many different industries. If there was one word that I would describe it as is essentially like the single source for signals, list building, and enrichment. It's essentially your go-to tool to keep the data inside your CRM and outbound processes fresh and up to date.
You position Databar as the data engine behind GTM, not the outbound orchestrator, not the CRM, not the sequencer. How do you see Databar coexisting with tools like Clay or Apollo in a modern GTM stack? Like, where should the line be drawn between the data layer and the playbook layer in 2026?
Yeah, so I think there's many ways to look at it. The way we've built Databar is really that it allows you to orchestrate a lot of your workflows. It's not just about, getting data and embedding it somehow into another tool. We have the full cycle set of tooling to build that kind of orchestration. Now, I think that there have been several cycles within go-to-market tools. There was this AI SDR cycle. There was a single data provider cycle. And recently we had a clay cycle where people were building tables, enriching their data using these really complex setups. And then after that, we had like a brief N8N setup too. And all of these tools are still really big and used by thousands of people. But for us, the writing is on the wall that Claude Code and agentic flows are really the future of go-to-market. We just did a full migration of our Databar blog from our custom hosted server over to
Crazy.
Framer. And, we were able to edit, I think, 600 blog posts in one go to fix any dead links and all of those things. And, it's a huge time saver. It's a huge productivity unlocker. Um, but the problem that we see very clearly with Claude Code and agents is that their access to data is limited. You need to have relationships with all the data providers. You need to have API keys from all the data providers. The waterfall logic is much more complex than it seems on the surface. And then if you want to work through a large number of leads or companies and you want to enrich them, doing them with an agent also doesn't really make sense because it's more of
Exactly.
a formulaic infrastructure solution. I see Databar as fitting into that future stack quite squarely.
Okay, so you have got a demo ready for us. Walk me through the one workflow in Databar that you would tell a GTM leader to start with tomorrow. Like, what does the tool look like from sourcing a list to getting it into the outbound stack, and what's the biggest leverage point in that flow? You can do it right now by sharing your screen. Cool.
So
Let's
what
start.
we have on Databar, and this is essentially what we're coming out with, is built by Databar. Our whole philosophy with this release is that go-to-market teams are essentially becoming builders because you're not longer just enriching a list, uploading it into Instantly or Smartlead or an outbound tool, sending it out, and then monitoring those replies. You're actually building go-to-market systems. And, I'm seeing a lot of like even like Jan, our CMO, he has been writing code, something that, historically has been reserved to engineers.
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason we're calling it Build by Databar is because we want to empower people to build the playbooks and the systems that they dream about for their companies, for their startups. And Essentially, what it gives you is all the tool set that you need on the data side and on the orchestration side. So we have here, if you're familiar with Databar, just a quick overview. We
I
have a,
am.
you probably are, yeah, but we have like the full infrastructure on building spreadsheets. So let's say, I'll open up this table here. It's 500 global portfolios, a table I have in here. So
Great.
inside Databar, the main app,
Cool.
just very briefly, we have data sources, so you can build lists from intent sources, specialized databases, or just with filters. And then we have a bunch of enrichments, which allow you to qualify and give context to that data, as well as agents, researchers, and tools, which you would traditionally need to build something that's reproducible and that can be scaled up. What build allows you to do is it takes all of this functionality and capabilities and gives it to Claude Code. So Claude Code can now build tables, it can add enrichments to tables, it can run them, it can filter data, it can actually add waterfalls, add custom prompts, AI
Lovely.
researchers if it wants to. And that's what this tool enables people to do. I can do a quick demo in Cloud Code, but I also want to, I'd be happy to just talk about, just give it to the listeners. We can give free access to everyone listening to this podcast and they can play around with it on their own. It's currently
They will love
live in
it. We
beta.
can show the demo of how you give it to Claude, so we have the time. We can do that if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. I can do a quick demo. Let me just switch over my screen.
We're good to go.
Okay. So I'll do like a really, really simple one. Yeah, like use the Databar MCP to verify these emails, David at Databar.ai. And I'll do like a fake email so that it gives us uh,
Yeah.
a false result. Um, so when I run it, essentially Cloud Code or Cloud Chat also, it's basically a remote MCP server, has full access to the Databar MCP. So we can
Okay.
actually go and connect to it. First, it's searching for enrichments on its own, finding the enrichments it wants to use. So here we have zero bounce, emailable found. It decides it wants to use emailable. It's going to run this enrichment, and then in a second, it's going to give me back the result. The process would be the
Great.
same for 2 emails as well as for 5,000 emails. And it just did that, gave us a table, and
Exactly.
we have it in here. And I can take it a step further and like upload this data into a Databar table and then add enrichments there. But the core premise is really, I think, demonstrated in like a really simple example like this already.
Thank you so much for that. And my next question would be about the waterfall enrichment, right? So your waterfall enrichment spans 90 plus providers. So it tries provider A, falls back to B, and then C to hit match rates above 90%. How realistic is that for a true ABM, especially in the niche verticals for emerging markets where the data just isn't as rich, right? What are the real trade-offs between signal density and coverage?
Yeah, so I think within niche markets, and that's actually a pretty recurring problem that we hear about, is that the traditional tools might not work. A lot of the databases oftentimes actually share data and work together to make their databases better. Uh, but I'd say that a lot of the data providers might cover, let's say, 80% of the market, and not necessarily go into more niche spaces because it's not something that's reproducible or something that a lot of customers might need. For those cases, usually what we suggest and the approach that works is building essentially a custom waterfall. With agents available today, there's a lot of ways in which you can find contact info, get the owners of businesses, and so on. And a lot of that data actually does live on the web. So building out these processes is still possible, but it just requires a little bit of more work. Um, and yeah, it's just a bit of experimentation to get there.
Yeah. What is one thing that GTM leaders consistently misunderstand about the data enrichment tools and something you find yourself correcting over and over again?
Not everyone understands the depth that you can go into with data enrichment. Oftentimes, data enrichment is associated with, here's a LinkedIn URL, find me this person's email, or get me their phone number, or tell me what's their job title. But I think nowadays, especially with tools like Databar, Clay, Apollo, there's levels of depth that you could go into this. And at least in my mind and in our kind of philosophy at DataBar is that enrichment is no longer just here's one data point, get me five more. Uh,
Exactly.
it's it's more about building a system of, collecting data points and then also analyzing them and getting the output that, you would want to actually see in your CRM or system of record.
Understood. So, David, this has been a brilliant conversation, genuinely. Before I let you go, where should people go to try that bar? And what's the one thing you had want a listener to take away from today?
Yeah, Databar.ai is our website. I think the one takeaway is play around with Claude Code, whether it be with Databar or without. I feel like, we've been embedding it into our internal processes quite significantly lately, and certainly the future feels agentic. If you do end up using Claude Code, feel free to give Databar a try in embedding the MCP. But regardless, I think it's really powerful and it's much easier than many people think. So there's no reason to procrastinate about it or to push it back.
It is indeed, and as you guys saw that he just gave us a quick demo, and they're officially launching their MCP integration on this Monday. So you guys would be really getting the most out of it. So the big takeaway from today in 2026, your GTM stack is only as strong as the data layer underneath it. David and the team at DataBar are making the case that layers should be unified, intelligent, and accessible to everyone, not just engineers. You can try it at Databar.ai. If you got values from this episode, share it with other person on your GTM team. I will see you next time. Thank you.